Welcome back to Sacred Arc, a podcast about life, loss, and the soul in between. I'm Kimberley, intuitive grief guide, death doula, licensed esthetician, and whether I wanted to be or not, a lifelong student of grief. There are some losses that don't simply change a chapter of your life, they change the entire story. Because when you spend decades building a life beside someone, they become part of your routines, your future, your memories, your identity, the way you move through the world. And when they're suddenly gone, it's not just the loss of a person, it's the loss of a life you built together. Today's guest is John. John grew up in Springfield, Missouri, and has spent more than 4 decades working in Hollywood as an accomplished stunt performer, stunt coordinator, filmmaker, writer, and director. Since 1980, he's worked on iconic productions including The Dukes of Hazzard, The Fall Guy, Magnum P.I., Knight Rider, Batman, Speed, The Quick and the Dead, and Nash Bridges, and many others. Today, he continues directing and writing projects including work for Netflix. From the outside, many people might assume John's life has been defined by action, adventure, and risk. But underneath the Hollywood stories is another story, a love story. John met his wife Donna in California in 1993. They married in 1995, raised 3 children together, built a life filled with friendship, partnership, laughter, and deep respect. When John talks about Donna, one thing becomes immediately clear: she wasn't simply his wife, she was his person. One thing he said that stayed with me was, why would we argue with the best gift of our lives? And honestly, that says everything. But in 2021, after months of being misdiagnosed with pneumonia and respiratory illness, Donna was finally diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer on October 6th. She passed away 6 days later, October 12th. She had never smoked, and that speed of that loss changed everything. What makes John's story especially powerful is that he had spent years witnessing trauma through healthcare, through stunt work, through life experience. He had seen loss before. He had seen death before. But nothing prepared him for losing the person he loved most. Since Donna's death, John has moved back to Missouri, settling near Branson, surrounded by nature, quiet, and open space. And while life continues, so does grief. Today's episode and conversation is about love, widowhood, loneliness, hidden depression, survival, identity, and what happens after the love of your life dies. Please welcome John to the show. Before we actually jump into talking about grief, I'd love for people to know Donna as a person. So what was she like?
Wow. Somebody who knew both of us knew that right away when she put it together that we would be together, that we were meant to be for each other. It was one of those realizations where they just kind of came to it like, oh my God, you guys are absolutely perfect for each other. And when I walked into her office, she set us up. She set us up on a little blind office date. I just went to her office. And when I walked through the door, I saw this woman in front of me, and she was just spectacular. And she had like an aura around her. There was so much energy in the room and in her eyes. And I just was dumbfounded when I saw her. And she said my name, and I just, yeah, and it kind of jogged me. And we knew at that moment that we were going to be together for the rest of our lives. It was just instantaneous. And we never left each other's side from that day on. She had a magic about her. Everyone that she touched remembered her, and it touched their lives. Just between just her positivity and her cooking and the pasta sauce that she created and bottled and would give out to people and sell. She just made friends all over the world. She had friends in Italy. She was full Italian, and she used to go to Italy about twice a year when she was growing up, all her childhood and teenage years, and so she fell in love with Italy and Amalfi Coast and Tuscany and all those places. And everyone she met, she just made friends with. There was a relationship instantly. And she gave so much to everyone just of herself. And she was very selfless, her best friend's best friend. And she would do things for people just altruistically, where she just didn't expect anything from people in return. She just was that kind of a person. She would go out of her way for anybody and everybody that were her friends and her family. And family was the most important to her. She always would say that. That was kind of her mantra, that family was the most important. And her service was going on, and I was getting ready to do her eulogy after she passed away. It was an enormous church. It was one of those gigantic, big Catholic churches, and it was 6 stories tall and crazy big. And I hadn't even noticed how many people were there. And when I got up to do the eulogy, went up to the pulpit and I looked out over the crowd, and this enormous church was standing room only. I just never had seen anything like that. I mean, the church services weren't like that were there. And there were people that were literally standing in the aisles because there were no more seats. People from all over the country, from Italy, from all over the world. She touched so many people so deeply that they never forgot her. And I was just dumbfounded at how many people were there. And it that was really emotional for me. I knew that, but she had touched so many people, and that was very apparent when their service was going on. She was beautiful. She was like that classic Italian beauty, and I definitely married up. Yeah, because I didn't know what she saw in me, but I was really glad that she decided to pick me. Our children, we had 3 children together, and they would say all the time that she was just born to be a mother. Every day of their lives, they were lucky. They used to say constantly that they hit the parent lottery because she was just born to be a mother. Every day she would go out of her way to do all the holidays, and they were just so over the top. It wasn't over the top to show others what she could do. It was specifically just for her kids. So she didn't care what other people thought. She wasn't trying to do it to where everyone would notice how elaborate these were. It was specifically just for those kids. That was it. Our daughter one time did a Wizard of Oz party for her, and she worked for weeks creating giant lollipops that looked just like lollipops that were all over the backyard. And she created a yellow brick road all through the property and had actors come in and play characters, and it was just magical for our kids. And there weren't a ton of people there. There was only a handful of people there, so it wasn't like she would throw these big elaborate parties and it would be like the party of the Elliots. It just wasn't like that. It was all for the kids. And so they were the ones that she was doing this for. And every holiday was like that. And every meal was like that. And there was nothing more important to her than her family, her children, and her marriage. And it was just an amazing ride. I feel extremely lucky that I got 30 years with her. Selfishly, I would love to have had more years, but one of the good things is that her cancer was so fast that she didn't even have time to have treatments or radiation or drugs or anything. She didn't do any of those. It was just too fast. And she always kept a humor about it also. When we finally got the diagnosis that she had stage 4 cancer, and it was everywhere. By that time, it was just, they had misdiagnosed her completely. Since February of 2021 all the way to October of 21, they had misdiagnosed her completely. And when they realized what it was stage 4, and it was just everywhere. There was nothing they could do. And the first thing that she said was, well, I'm screwed. And then the second thing she said was, because had been kind of dieting a little bit, and she said, well, I know what we're going to do next. We're going to go to Taco Bell, and we're going to go to Marie Callender's and get a whole pie. That's what we're going to do on the way home. She kept her humor with that, and she was selfless. And after the service, all of her classmates from her high school showed up, and they had been her friends the entire time. And it wasn't like they just heard it and came to it. They had been friends for a long time, and they used to meet together and periodically. And like I said, I selfishly, I would have loved to have more time with her, but I just feel tremendously lucky that I had 30 years with that woman, because it enhanced my life. It changed my life. It enhanced my life. It enhanced the kid. The kids are amazing, good human beings, very selfless, very kind, very empathetic, entrepreneurs, and just amazing kids. That's very important for them to keep her legacy alive by being good humans and good stewards of the earth. And that's all to The majority is her. She just did an amazing job raising them, and luckily I had schedules where I could just be around all the time too. So I was around as well. So I got to be with her. She homeschooled all the kids herself, and that was really important to her that they got the best education. They didn't get bullied, and they were didn't have any limitations, and they didn't have incidences with terrible teachers, and that homeschooling did an amazing job, and they all excelled amazingly. So every day she was doing something to enhance herself, myself, her children, and her family. And that was just her mission every single day. She didn't take days off of that. She didn't let the children raise themselves. It was very conscious how we raised those children, without electronics and without the overstimulation and bad influences. And it paid off because they're really good human beings. She was so amazing in so many different facets.
I love that. One of the things that I love most about hearing you talk about Donna, and my listeners can't see this, but we are on a video chat on Zoom. And one of the things that I love, and I've always loved from the minute that I met you, is every time that you talk about her, you smile, you light up. And it's so evident that that love was just an amazing, amazing thing. And you've described your marriage as a storybook marriage.
Yes.
So, what I want to know is what made your relationship work so well for so many years?
Uh, well, I think a couple of things. Just the fact that we were both very patient people. We weren't into conflict. We were giving individuals. We both were. She was very glad that I used to be a crisis negotiator because I put a lot of those dynamics into the marriage. All the dynamics of negotiation and how to talk to somebody and how especially to listen. It was all about listening. It was all about making sure that the other person is heard and understood. And so not only did it come from my training, but it's just how I grew up too. My parents were really good communicators. So I learned good communication and I learned how to talk to people and how to listen to people. And we used to wake up in the morning, and our mission as soon as we woke up was not what we could get out of the marriage, the relationship. It was never what could I get out of this? And she never thought the same way. What we thought and what we voiced was we wanted to wake up wondering what we could do for the other person to enhance their life, to make it better, easier, and that they felt more love that day, all day long. And that was our mission every single day that we woke up. It was always about what can we do for the other person to make them heard and listened and cared for and loved. And that was very important to us. So luckily we were both that personality type. So that's why we didn't argue, we didn't fight, we didn't need to. And the way I looked at it, why would you argue and fight with the absolute best gift you have ever been given in your entire life? That didn't make any sense to me, why a person would do that for somebody who is a gift in your life. Somebody who brings turmoil and drama, I can understand that. And that just goes with the territory. But neither one of us was like that. We never went into life and relationships and goals of what am I going to get out of this? It was always what can we do for the other one? And I think that had a tremendous amount to do with that. Her parents were not very good communicators, and her whole family was a little bit dysfunctional, except for a few. Her sister was really a good communicator, but the other family they weren't really good communicators. So she overcame that. That was a conscious effort for her to break the chain and be a really good communicator and to give instead of take, and to have those traits of not listening to your spouse. And she was very successful at it. That was a conscious effort on her part. She had a first marriage that she was married to a narcissist, and she tried to stay with that marriage as long as possible. So she even made that try to work, even with a blatant narcissist, but she just finally had to leave. So that was an effort on her part to break that chain and be a tremendously good partner and good marriage partner and good wife. And she had her own independence, and I encouraged that she had independence in her own life. And she went out and did what she wanted to do. And if she wanted to work, that's great. If she didn't want to work, that was great. Luckily, she just did things that made her happy because I made it to where she didn't have to work so she could take care of the kids and be with the kids every single day. So they would benefit from that. But she did lots of projects besides that. Like she developed her pasta sauce that was her great grandmother's recipe and bottled that. And that's a legacy that continues to this day. We still bottle that. That had a lot to do with the success, I believe. Just several of those dynamics together.
Beautiful. So I know you already kind of talked a little bit about what happened leading up to Donna's diagnosis. What was it like for you those 6 days between that diagnosis and her passing? What did that feel like for you emotionally because it happened so fast?
There was no time to really deal with it. There was no time to process. There was no time to get ready for it, to prepare for it. It was in the middle of the crisis stage. And one of the large problems during this whole time was this was during COVID. And she had lung cancer. It finally was realized, not pneumonia like they had misdiagnosed her. And the time that I was trying to find, we knew that it was something terrible, but nobody would listen to us and nobody would see us and no one would have appointments with us because it was COVID and it was right in the middle. And since she had lung cancer, try to get a pulmonologist in Los Angeles during COVID. It was just impossible. And I probably called 30 different offices and no one would see her. And it wasn't until I literally pleaded with the front desk lady just to let us come in on a lunch break. And she finally talked the doctor into doing that. And then he saw us and he saw the films and he said, "They've been telling you what? Because this is not what they've been saying. This is cancer. I'm going to have to refer you to a oncologist." So we got that oncologist appointment and they sent the films over. And that was the October 6th when he gave us consult and he said, "Yeah, I've looked at all the films. I don't know why they were telling you this because this was very clearly stage 4 cancer and it's all over. It's in your liver, it's in your lungs, of course, it's in your bones, most likely in your brain. And so the only thing, if you even want to do anything, because if it was him, he said he wouldn't even try. He said it's just too far. You can go to UCLA and have some tests and try to see if it's in the brain, because in order to treat it, they needed to know if it was in the brain or not. And so they said, if you want to treat it, you'll have to go and have some tests to make sure that it is or is not in the brain. And that will dictate what kind of treatment we use. But he called me aside when she had walked ahead and said, "I wouldn't do anything. I can't tell you that that would be a good idea. I think it would be worse doing the treatments for her because it's not going to help." And so that was October 6th. And she went downhill so fast from October 6th, she could barely breathe. And this is a woman who was in very, very good shape. She would run after the kids, very active. She walked. We used to hike. We used to go on vacations and walk places. And she was really in great shape. And now this week it started where she couldn't even walk across the room without having to sit down because she was out of breath. And we knew that it was going badly. The ironic part is that I kept saying, let's go to the ER. And she said that she didn't want to go to the ER because if she went to the ER, she might catch COVID. And so she didn't go, and the days progressed and she got worse and was just in bed and she couldn't get out of bed. She was having trouble getting dressed. And there was a time where I said, we're going to the ER. So today we're going to get dressed and we are going to the ER and see what they can do. And she just didn't have any fight left in her at all. And so she got up to get dressed and she couldn't get dressed. And that was October 12th. She could not get up even to get dressed. And I said, "That's it. We're calling an ambulance and getting her to the ER." I called an ambulance. They came. They took her from upstairs because she couldn't get downstairs by herself even. So they had to help her downstairs, put her on a gurney, and take her out to the ambulance. Now, the ambulance was out in front of the house, and they got her in the back of the ambulance, and then they were calling around to try to get her into a hospital. And since it was right in the middle of COVID, there were two hospitals that were on either side of us. And one was about 25 minutes away, and the other one was about maybe 20 minutes away, maybe 15 minutes away. And they were calling both of them, and both of them were full and said no. So she had been out there for 10 to 15 minutes already. It was getting closer to 20 minutes that she was out there while they were just trying to find a hospital to take her. And she can't breathe. She's saying now that she can't breathe. You had the paramedics that were saying, if you're talking, you're breathing. But she was having really hard time breathing. It was labored. She had to fight for talking and to breathing, right? And so they finally got a hospital that was about over a half an hour away to take her. And they loaded her up and took off. And I jumped in the car, I followed, and they got her to the hospital. I parked, I went to the ER. And since it was COVID, they were not letting anybody in the hospital. So nobody got in. So I couldn't come into the ER at all. I had to stay outside. And they said that people would be out just to tell me how things are going and when they got her a room or got her situated. I said, okay. So I just waited out there. And then there was one of the doctors came out and said that they were currently working on her. And I said, what do you mean working on her? And he said, she coded the moment she got into the ER. And so we'll let you know how it's going. We're currently working on her right now. And that was, I don't even remember. It was like going into the Twilight Zone at that moment. I couldn't understand that she coded. And I know healthcare. I've been involved in healthcare for almost 50 years, and it still didn't make sense to me. It just in a way because it was emotional. It was something I felt. It wasn't coming out of knowledge. And so another half an hour went by, and the chaplain came out, and I knew the moment that I saw that chaplain come out there to talk to me that she was gone. Because chaplains do not come out to talk with you and bring you into the room unless you're gone. So he took me in. I didn't want to hear the words. He didn't talk. I didn't ask him. We went into the consultation room, and there were some nurses and a doctor in there. And I did not want to hear those words. I did not want to hear them say the words that I knew they were going to say. And they broke it to me, and I lost it. Just lost it. I was bawling like a baby in there. So they were there with me for about 20 minutes or so. And then they let me go back to where she was and where she was lying. And I just sat next to her for another hour and I held her hand. And the worst part that I was thinking, besides that I don't have her anymore, was what was I going to tell our kids? Because we had young kids at that time. Two of them, the boys were still teenagers. And one was about 22, 23. And so they were young. And all they knew is that mom the two boys were there. They saw her get put on the ambulance and taken away. And to them, mom was going to get help and then come back. And I didn't know what I was going to tell them. That was the hardest part. That was the one that's the part that was just wrenching my heart. Was I had no idea what I was going to say to those kids because they were all just expecting her to just come back. And I got there and the two boys were there and I took them into our house and I was having trouble getting the words out. It was like the words were something stuck in my throat and I couldn't get it up. And I finally got the courage to get it out of my throat and said, she's gone. Mom's gone. And the youngest, he was, I think he was about 16 or so. He instantly just started tearing up. And the one that was about 19, he was just in disbelief. And he said, wait, what? Hold on. That's it? That's it? She's just gone? No, those were his words. That's it? He just couldn't believe. And then I had to call um, our other child, and she came to the house and met her in the driveway and told her the same thing. And I was just bawling and holding her, and we just held each other for a long time. And it didn't make sense to them, didn't make sense to me. We had a plan. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
When you make a plan. So that was the day that we had to start healing.
Now, do you think sudden loss like that creates a different kind of grief in the nervous system?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you prepare for it, you have time to work through emotionally and psychologically and come to terms with things sometimes. And you can have talks with them. We just didn't have that chance. It was like a car accident. Just 1 minute she was there, and then the next minute she was gone. It's more of an impact of a trauma that happens because there's that just disbelief where if you're preparing for it, you have that time to get ready and psychologically prepare yourself. And none of that was, especially the kids. That was traumatic for all of us.
And you kind of touched on this a little bit, but you worked in healthcare and you also spent years in dangerous stunt environments, right, where you witnessed a lot of trauma and death.
Yes.
Do you think that that made you think you were more emotionally prepared for loss?
Probably yes, because I have seen so much illness and death. I worked in ER, I worked in OR, I worked in psych, had lots of clients and patients that I worked with commit suicide, and lots of people dying on the table in OR and ER in the healthcare. Just hundreds and hundreds of people I've seen die. And in the stunt work, yeah, I had friends that died while doing stunts. And I also had several really close stunt friends that passed away of cancer as well in a short amount of time. That one kind of took me by surprise because I had a circle of friends that I had in stunt work, and we came up together in the early 80s. We did jobs together. Whenever one would get the job, the other three would get the job. We'd all do these together. We worked on huge budget films, Speed and Batman's, several Batmans, and we worked for months and months at a time with each other, depending upon each other's for our lives. And that was my circle of friends that I went everywhere with. They would come to my wedding. They would come to birthdays. We'd go to their holidays and functions with their kids. And they were the closest people in the industry that I had. And all three of them died of cancer within a year and a half. And this was not even a year before Donna. And it was becoming a little absurd. And here's somebody who is used to death, but nobody's prepared for rapid fire death like that. And let alone the person that's your soulmate, and that both of you envision nothing less than spending the rest of your life together. Even with all the deaths I've seen, and whether it's in healthcare or stunt work, nothing prepared me for the impact of when Donna died. I've never experienced anything like that before. All of the deaths, and even my family, my father, my mother's still alive. My father passed away, and other family members, and those were really essential people in my lives, but nothing compared to. It was like getting hit with a fly swatter versus getting smashed with a 50-ton dump truck. Just totally different, and the impact was different. The response was different. The depression was different. The inability to function every day was different. Just getting out of bed was the biggest thing in my life, was just trying to figure out how to get out of bed again, and staying in bed for 5 days at a time. And where my kids were all concerned about me, and they would come in and check on me. And I think they handled the death in some ways better than I did. I made sure that I was there for them, however. And I learned that because I saw Donna's mother compromise Donna when her father died. Her mother was very self-centered, and she just instantly went into this thing where she needed Donna to help her through this, not even realizing that Donna lost her father. It was just all about she had lost her husband, and she even said those words. It wasn't your father has died. It's my husband has died. So even the verbiage that she used was very self-centered. without any regard for the fact that Donna had lost her father. And so she was expected to help her through that grief without providing anything back for her. And so when this happened, I consciously was really aware of that. And I made sure that I was not focusing on myself as much as I was focusing on the children. I wanted them to know I was there for them instead of what I saw Donna's mother do, which was just selfishly say, you need to take care of me because I'm hurting. And so that was really important to me to make sure that the kids were taken care of. And I worked with them every day and I was with them every day. And I was asking them how they were doing every day and offering therapy. And we would go lots of places and we would go to the ocean and we would go on day trips. And the kids themselves went by themselves to the beach and to day trips and things to make sure that they processed by themselves alone. But I made sure that I was there for them instead of just focusing on the fact that I was going through that.
What do you think that most people misunderstand about grief after losing a spouse?
The impact that it doesn't go away, that it always stays with you. I heard a really good saying once from somebody who had lost his wife, and he said it's like putting a big giant rock in your pocket and you can feel the weight. It's because it's a big rock and you feel the weight and you know it's there and it's heavy, but every day you still keep that rock in your pocket and you get used to it over time. You get used to it, and a week later, a month later, you don't think about that rock as much. You just kind of adapt to that rock, the weight of that. And then 6 months later, you hardly know it's there because you've just adapted to it. You've almost forgotten it's there, but the rock didn't get lighter. You just adapted better to it. And the weight is still there. And I think a lot of people just believe or expect that you're going to get through this, and then a month goes by and I think I've heard you say the casseroles stop coming, and people start getting on with their lives and they kind of expect you to get on with your life. And after months and 2 months and 6 months and then everybody goes back to normal pretty much. And they don't talk to you about it. They don't mention anything. They just are normal. Donna's niece, she was her favorite niece. And she would just love this girl. And I had not talked to her very much since Donna passed away. And she called me for some advice on something totally unrelated to Donna. And she just mentioned that I didn't know if I should contact you or email or call or text. I was afraid that it would remind you, if I called or contacted you, that it would remind you of Donna and you would get sad. And so people just don't do that. And I told her, I said, no, it's actually the opposite. I welcome people talking about her because it makes me happy. Thinking about her makes me happy. Remembering memories makes me happy. So it's the absolute opposite. Please contact me and talk about her because I don't have anybody to talk to her about sometimes because people avoid you. So I encourage people to not go into that silence of being afraid to talk about it with somebody who's in pain. Yeah, it may hurt a little bit, but it's something that needs to help to heal. And I would rather talk about it and remember her and think about her and see her smile and describe something that she did or tell a story about her rather than just not talk about her. And so I think I believe is a big takeaway for people that I wish that they would understand that you can talk to people about this and it actually helps them to process it.
Well, and I think one of the things that we all fear in losing someone is that they're going to be forgotten. And to us, they're such a huge part of our internal world daily that for us, we're always thinking of them. They're always there. Feeling like they may be forgotten is a little scary. And it's nice when you do have people talk to you about it because it just lets you know and assures you that they are being remembered. So, one thing that I really appreciated about your honesty, we've talked a little bit about this, is that you said you still carry underlying depression, even though most people wouldn't realize it.
Yeah.
So, what does that hidden grief look like for you?
Well, so it's been 4 years. close to 4 years. And I still have moments in the morning when I wake up that make it difficult to get out of bed. I'm running a business. I took off a year of my business to deal with this and to help the kids through. So I lost a year of my business, just the day to day taking care of it. And then you get through it, and then depression lifts a little bit. You can laugh again once in a while, but I still feel that it's just always there. I sometimes don't get out of bed for a couple hours in the morning. I just lie there and I don't want to move. I don't want to start the day. And it's not that I'm going to think about her. It has nothing to do with not wanting to process or think about her or remember about her. It's just there. I've lost a part of me that had an excitement for life, my own life, not just my life with her, because that's different. And so the spark has really dimmed just day to day. Luckily, I live way out in the country on a creek. I'm really removed from people, and it takes like a half an hour to just even get into it, the smallest town around here. And to me, I'm happier now that I'm alone. I just am here with my thoughts and my creativity, and I can work on things and write and do my work and do things. And all those things bring me satisfaction, but there's always this giant rock in my pocket that I feel like I'm lugging around. I was feeling especially destructive a couple of weeks ago. And there's an AI program where some people, they'll put pictures of their loved ones, back from the 40s or 20s or something, these antique pictures. And you put it into the AI program and they come to life and they move and they smile and they wave to you, right? And I chose one of my favorite pictures of her, which she's at the beach and she's looking at me and her eyes are smiling and she's just got this gigantic smile on her face because she was looking at me and we were just having a wonderful day that day. And I picked that picture and I put it into the AI and she came to life and she just smiled at me and squinted her eyes. She had these big Italian eyes and they already smiled. Just her eyes would smile. They just had sunshine coming out of them. And then she smiles at the camera and she just kind of like waves like, hi. Oh, that wrecked me. That wrecked me for the day. Yeah. It's like, why did I do that?
I can imagine.
Mm.
Yeah, I haven't ventured into that territory yet because I had a feeling. Do you think that men especially are conditioned to hide grief well?
Of course. I think that just goes without saying. Men are programmed to do that, just to hide the emotions, not show emotions, not show fear, depression, hurt, sorrow, just to be strong. Society expects them. I think that's kind of a cop out. I think that men in society have that expectation. I think that society itself would be more forgiving. I just think that most men are programmed to do that from their father and their father and their father. And people were tough. They were actually tougher years ago. During World War II, people were tough. They dealt with everything, anything and everything. They didn't cry about it. And so a manly man doesn't cry about it. You go about your business, you do it, get through it. Don't even think about it. You do your job, take care of your family. Don't have time for that stuff. And I think that's men in society have that expectation, not society itself, where it's expected for women to feel, to emote, to have time to heal and show the emotions and cry. And that's just normal expectation. I think women have that expectation and they just do it because they're much more in touch with their feelings and emotions than men ever could. And so they just do it naturally, where men have built up walls because they felt that they needed to do that.
So, what does strength actually look like to you now after loss?
Getting out of bed in the morning, having the courage to get on the computer and work and be with people, because being out in the middle of nowhere out here, I think that was a conscious decision on my part just to not be around people. So I think being around people is an important thing. And I work a lot and I'm around people a lot on certain days. And I do things that are around tons of people. Like I still work in the film industry and I go to car shows and I have my own car that's in the car show. So I'm involved. And I think it's just trudging through that every single day and following through on what's on the calendar. That's just not easy sometimes because my calendar is full. And in theory, it's great. And when I put it on the calendar, I'm looking forward to it. And then I wake up in the morning and I don't want to do any of it. I have to push myself and get the courage to get out of bed and get dressed and not think about that I'm alone without my soulmate. And so that's hard. And so the courage is just keeping one foot in front of the other every day and calling people and texting people and keeping dialogue with other humans. Because it's easy for me not to do that when you live way, way out in the country. It's extremely easy just to not do any of that. You won't come across anybody by accident. So it's a conscious effort to contact other human beings when you live in a place like this, and then go to them and do work and do play and do car shows and work on films and things like that. And talk about it and do therapy. Therapy was really frustrating to me. It was I couldn't find anybody good in Missouri, and because we had moved from California to Missouri and back home where my family all was, because I was raised in Missouri, and I went out to California, and then I came back after she passed away. And my colleagues that I worked with in behavioral health were all out in LA, and so I said, well, I'm going to have to get a therapist here because I definitely need somebody to talk to. And I went through, I think, 5 different therapists, and none of them were helpful, or their style was wrong. It was a bad fit. Some of them were just way too Missouri-like. One one therapist had a little dog and a goat with a diaper in the room with us. It just was frustrating, and nothing was being sparked. And that frustration of starting from the beginning, and you're going to have 20 sessions just to catch up to your life. And it was just really frustrating. So I ended up contacting my colleague back in California, who I was in therapy with and who knows me. He knows my children. He knows Donna very well. I've known him since the 80s, and he was just a natural choice. And I said, I'm not going to do this in person. We're just going to do Zoom, and that's it. That's all I've got to say. So now I talk to him every month, and we just check in with each other, and he gives me projects. And so the courage to actually seek something like that out is important too, because that's very easy to not do that, to not talk about it, to not talk about it with strangers, especially, and just feel on a regular basis, because you don't want to feel that hurt all the time. On a regular basis. You don't want to feel that hurt on a regular basis. You want to not feel. And so thinking about it and remembering her and making sure pictures are up about her and not hiding pictures and saying, I don't want to think about her. And then seeking to go through that pain sometimes on a regular basis so it allows you to heal.
Do you think that grief changed the way that you think about time, aging, or mortality?
Yeah, profoundly. I felt like I had the whole world ahead of me. I felt like I had so much time and experiences ahead, my whole life together ahead of us. And I just saw like an infinity. I didn't have a sense of mortality. I just saw infinity. And after she passed away, I couldn't see anything past my own grief. The timeline had stopped. There was no timeline anymore. So I felt like I would, and it's hard to come to terms with. It's hard to talk about, but it's like there were times where I'd think, if I got cancer, I'm not going to even do anything. I'm not going to do treatments. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just fine. Okay, great. The timeline was gone. So it wasn't like I had something to look forward to with that person, because that was my life. That was my life that was important, was with her. And so with the importance gone, I had no motivation to fight anything. So I honestly would say, yeah, if I got sick, then fine. All right, that's the way it goes. And if I had a heart condition or anything, no meds, no drugs, no treatments, just however it works, because there is no timeline anymore, and I don't feel like it's important anymore.
So I know you've talked about moving from Los Angeles out to Missouri after Donna passed. What was that transition like emotionally for you? And then since you've been there, you're out in the nature and the stillness. What has that taught you since losing Donna?
Coming back to Missouri was important, and it was necessary, especially for the kids, since we just didn't have family out there. And to me, it was a no-brainer that since we didn't really have a lot of family except for Donna's sister and her husband and her kids, those were the only family we really had that were receptive and functional. So, and they were far away. We didn't see them often. So to me, it was just a no-brainer that we needed to be back with family. So my mother, sister, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends from first grade, everybody's here. So I just made the decision to come back here and have the kids especially and myself just surrounded by family to help all of us heal. And I was trying to focus on them. I thought it was really important for them. It was a positive thing to come back here because I was kind of done with LA anyway. I didn't really like living in LA anymore. And so it was kind of a two-tiered positivity where I was getting to leave California because I was done with it and go back to Missouri where that's my home and that's where I feel the best, and to be around family and friends when they being my family and friends, they never thought I would move back. My mother would say, I never thought you'd move back in my lifetime. And so for all those people to just really surround us, and it worked because they just smothered us with love and affection and attention and doing things and keeping us busy and taking the kids out for things and little trips, and they didn't have any time to really to focus on their depression other than therapeutically. That was really a good thing, spending time with family and friends, because they helped heal me, them. So that was a really positive thing to come back here. And plus just being back in the country and away from the city was really positive for me personally. And being out here is something that I've wanted for decades out in the country. And I'm way, way out in the country. My traffic jam is a flock of 40 wild turkeys that walk across the road and I have to wait till they're done. That's my traffic jam. So to me, I'm happy out here. I've got my peace. I've got my solitude. I don't see people unless I want to see people. And I can grieve the way I want to at my time. I can heal at my time the way I need to and I want to. So it's on my terms. Being out here is on my terms. Where if I were in the city and around people and around constant stimulation, there'd be distractions all the time. And I felt like that's why I took a year off of work, because a lot of people, they'll take a little bit of time off and then they go back to work. I got to get back to work. I felt that was a mistake. I think that the people who do that, they jump back in work and they're distracted from actually healing. They don't allow themselves to heal. And I felt like I needed a good year to help myself and my children heal without distractions. And so to come out here is my strength now. This is my superpower, to be out in a cabin, out in the woods, and it's daily healing process because I don't have to perform for anybody. I don't have to put on a face for anybody out here. I don't have to be that jolly guy or in a good mood, try to mask. I don't have to do that. I'm with myself, by myself, in a cabin, in the country, and so it's on my terms, and I can grieve when I want to. I can cry when I want to. I can veg out when I want to. I can not get up out of bed for several hours if I don't want to. And then I can be functional also, because this is a good creative place to be. So I can work on my writing, and I write scripts, and I can write, and I can do things. I can be creative out here. And I have a balance of doing that whenever I need to or I want to at my pace instead of other people's expectations. And I think that's really empowering to me.
I love that so much. Being there, or in general in your life now, what parts of Donna still feel most present for you?
I feel like she's there all the time. She's around. I feel her around. She has made her presence known to myself and my kids, like very clearly. Even the kids say, "Yep, she made her presence known." It was very important to connect. She comes to me in my dreams, and they're very symbolic dreams. And I hope and pray that when I go to sleep, I'll actually dream about her. And I've had about 4 good dreams, and they're not disjointed or weird dreams. They're just her and her element, and very symbolic that she's in a really comfortable, happy place, and she's happy for me. And she told me before she passed away that she did not want me moping around all the time. Our favorite movie together was Sleepless in Seattle, and Tom Hanks loses his wife, and he just is depressed, and he can't get out of it, and he just mopes around for a year or two, and he just can't get out of it. And she says, Donna said that, okay, I do not want you moping around like Tom Hanks in Sleepless in Seattle. I want you to get out. I want you to do things. I want you to have fun. I want you to not lock yourself in a house and not come out like Tom Hanks. I want you to get out. I want you to see people. I want you to be happy. I want you, the kids need other people around, even maybe a mother type figure. Do not, under any, I will come back and haunt you if you do not go and have fun and get over this and, get through this. She's around all the time. I feel her around all the time. There was a canvas, like an affirmation, a collection of affirmations, things you'd get at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or something. It just had affirmations like family, love each other, do things for each other, be there for each other. Just all these affirmations about family. It was all, the heading was family, and that was very important to her. And she put that up on our wall in the house we had in Pasadena, and it stayed there for years, years and years. It was there. And she was always preaching, the most important thing is family. You keep the family together, be there for our kids after I'm gone. Just family is really important. And so it was 2 nights after she had passed away, and I was trying to get some sleep, but I wasn't sleeping because I didn't sleep a lot back then. And I heard a big crash downstairs, and I went down to see what it was. And that affirmation canvas that had been on that wall for years was on the floor, face up, and about 7 feet over from where it was hanging in the middle of the kitchen, face up, so you couldn't miss it. And I'm just looking at it, and my kids heard it, and they came down and they saw it there, and they said, "Did you put that there?" And I said, I heard it fall, and it was right there, and it was all about family.
Hmm.
And so we all just kind of like looked around and said, "Okay, we get it. We understand. We're not going to let you down. It's all about family. We're here. We're here for each other." And we felt like that was one of the biggest messages you could ever get.
Definitely. I've had that happen with some things at my house too, from my grandma, where it's been pictures that have just literally jumped off the shelf over other pictures, landed on the floor face up, and not knocked anything down. And it's
Yes,
clearly like a, hey, I'm here, I love you,
right.
just want to let it be known. And I think it's such an amazing thing that that continues to happen. And that's just a testament to how much love is there and their beautiful energy.
Right. I never expected anything like that. I knew she was powerful spiritually.
Hmm.
And if anybody were to do that, it would have been her. So that's why I have no problem believing that, because that's something she would do. It's like she has a window, and I feel her presence around all the time.
I love that. So I just have one more question for you today. And this one is for all the listeners out there who might have just lost the love of their life and are struggling with grief. What do you want them to know? What do you want to say to them today?
It gets easier, but it never goes away, and it's okay. It's a new normal. My life is completely different than it was before. It doesn't mean it's worse. It's just different. I can still have fun, and I can still be with people, and I can still find happiness and joy in things and people and my kids and work. I can still do that. It's just a different DNA. My DNA has changed, and I will never go back to that before. But it doesn't mean that I'm damaged. It means that I was hurt, and I am hurt, and I will always be hurt, but I'm getting through the hurt, and it's not going to beat me. It's not going to kill me. It's not going to destroy me and be too much for me. I make sure to do things that are in the vein of healing, not destructiveness, because it's easy to fall into that, especially when you're depressed. So you have to have the courage to take one step at a time and to live again, but not expect that you're going to get over it and that you're going to be the same person. And that's okay. We change from all sorts of experiences that we have, good and bad, and it changes us. We go to college, that changes our personality, our DNA. We work, that changes us. We have traumas, that changes us. Doesn't beat us, but it just changes us. And this is just another form of change. And the problem is that we humans do not like change. We're consistency-based humans. We're creatures of consistency, and that's what we like. That's what we're comfortable with. Change is hard, and it's uncomfortable, and it's just understanding that we're a different person, and that different person is okay. Being in that different person is all right, and to be there for others that are going through this. And that has given me some solace too. And this isn't a conscious plug for you, but I have a friend of mine that just lost his wife of 50 years. And the first thing that I did for him after he came back to work and got back on his feet again and was to tell him about your podcast. He started listening to it, and he's listened to every single episode. And not only him, but he gave the podcasts to his children who lost their mother, and they have listened to it. And every single time I talk to him now, I just saw him yesterday, he thanks me for that. And he cries, and he thanks me for giving him that, because he says it's just does so much. It helps him so much to hear it, and to not feel alone, and that other people feel exactly the way that he is currently right now. And so that's what I felt when I listened to it. And that's what he feels when he listens to it. And so to get help from people, resources, podcasts, therapy, friends, family, and to actually go to your family and friends, and a lot of people don't do this, I don't think, to actually approach them, consciously go, hey, Ralph, look, I know it may be really uncomfortable to talk to me about Donna, but if you could do that, that would help me. And I know it would help you because you probably would like to talk about her and you're not because it's uncomfortable or you don't want to upset me. It's not. It may hurt, but it's a good hurt. And please don't be afraid to do that. And just go to every single person that will do that, because they'll all do that. Family, friends who are important, the important people, and say, look, please talk about her. Don't be afraid. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. If you talk about her, I start smiling because we talk about how much love she had and how she, to this day, she creates love with me and my family and kids, and it's a healing process for all of us, and you probably would benefit from it too because you're not talking about it, and that means that you're pinning up something, and it would do you good too. So let's all talk about it. Let's all communicate because this is a good thing, and don't be afraid. I think that was one thing that I would recommend to everybody who's going through grief. Once you get out of that pit, because it takes a while to get out of the pit, once you do climb out of the pit and you're functioning again, go to the people who are important to you, friends, family, and tell them it's okay to talk to somebody. It's okay to bring it up and encourage that.
I agree 100%. Thank you so much, John, for joining me today. What a beautiful and incredible love story between him and his wife, Donna. I'm just so grateful for all the amazing information he shared today on this show and for his friendship. What stayed most with me from this conversation wasn't only the story of loss, it was the story of love. Because grief this deep doesn't happen by accident. It exists because love existed first. And I think John's story challenges something our culture often gets wrong. The idea that healing means the pain disappears, that one day you simply wake up and move on. But grief often doesn't work that way. Sometimes grief stays, not in the same crushing way, not in the same overwhelming way, but it stays. And maybe that's okay. Because as John so beautifully described in that quote he heard from someone else, grief can be like carrying a heavy rock in your pocket. First, it's all you can think about. Every step feels difficult. Every movement reminds you it's there. Then eventually, you learn how to walk again. You learn how to laugh again. You learn how to function again. But the rock doesn't disappear because the love doesn't disappear either. You simply become someone who knows how to carry both the sadness, the gratitude, the loss, and the love, the absence and the memories. I think many grieving people need permission to hear that continuing to miss someone years later doesn't mean you're doing grief wrong. It means they mattered. It means they were woven into your life. It means love left a mark. So before we close today, I want to slow things down and invite you to close your eyes, and if it feels okay, put both hands over your heart. And take one slow breath in through your nose and a slow exhale through your mouth. I want you to just think about someone that you love, someone who shaped your life, someone whose presence still lives in your memories. And remember, love doesn't end when a life ends. Sometimes it simply changes form. Because when someone becomes part of your soul, the weight of missing them may never fully leave, but never does the love. If this episode felt heavy for you today, I want you to know that love never disappears, and you don't have to carry this grief alone. Be patient with yourself. Be kind with yourself. Show yourself some empathy. Be proud of the fact that you have the courage to wake up every morning, put one foot in front of the other, and make it through that day. This has been Sacred Arc. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll meet you again in the space between.